here, the Tracktion compound, joined by my friends Kirby, Paulson, Mike Bachmann. An interesting week for NASCAR. Definitely, we're fresh off the heels of the Auto Club 400, where we saw Alex Bowman absolutely wipe the field. A 10-second win for him. No one even came close. First two stages, that was a different conversation altogether. We had some good battles up front. Ryan Blaney looked strong. The Toyota guys came alive. Kyle Busch with a nice third-place finish. 3 of the 4 of those guys had good runs. But, it was better than the last few Auto Club races, and I think that's saying something. We really got a good show here. We saw the 5-wide racing after the restarts. We saw strong front runners all day. Obviously, Bowman looked class of the field, but I think it's safe to say that Chevy's intermediate package is here to stay, and they are definitely a threat. All worries coming into the season are now gone. This new body can keep up, and in 3 weeks, we've seen 3 different manufacturers take home the wins, and I think that is a great sign for this year to come. What did you guys think of the race this weekend?
Well, that point you just made about the manufacturers, I think, is really important. Gotta love me some parity right now. I mean, I think that just evens a lot of things out, and maybe it'll give some of these rookies a chance to shine here, kind of like we talked about in the first couple episodes. But I loved Bowman's performance. I mean, we've been talking about the entire time. And this kid needs to step up and be able to pull some numbers here. And this is the kind of performance you want to see. And even guys like Jimmie Johnson, like we had talked about this last week, Jimmie Johnson really was strong. And what was, quite frankly, a very emotional moment for him, and I'm sure Bach too, being able to look up and Jimmy being able to see his kids in the stars box there. So I just think all around it was really good stuff. And, Cullen, like you said, the Chevys performed well. Kurt Busch was there for a while. Jimmy was obviously there. Of course, Bowman was there. But let's not count guys like Blaney out, who just really got, quite frankly, the bad luck shaft right towards the end there. But, just all around, I think it was really good stuff.
Yeah, I echo all of that, of what both you guys said. I mean, Bowman had the best car basically as soon as they unloaded. He led both practices. The only thing that he didn't get was the pole. I mean, but he had the fastest car throughout the race. As you mentioned, Jimmie Johnson, was running top 3 all day, probably finished in the worst spot that he ran all race back in 7th. Just didn't really have it at the end in that long run speed. But it's great seeing these young guys perform. Even Blaney, he's had the worst luck, unfortunately, with these races, but he's up there in the front every week. I'm pretty sure he's led in every race this year, and he's still our points leader. So he's really putting together a strong start to his 2020 season. We saw, and we were talking about this last week with Joe Gibbs, didn't really bring the speed early in the weekend. Not even a Toyota didn't even qualify in the top 15. But we saw guys like Truex come from last place up in battle for the lead. We saw Hamlin, Kyle Busch, even Eric Jones salvaged top 10 finishes. But the racing this weekend was great. I mean, the restarts, we saw a 5-wide racing, but we saw a 3-wide racing. First 20 laps of a run up in the front, guys battling for the lead, and they were really going for it. So a lot of big risks taken, and that's the beauty of Auto Club. Such a wide racing surface, guys can use that forward momentum and try and make those passes. So it was really good to see, and give credit to Alex Bowman and that entire 88 team. They did a hell of a job as soon as they unloaded. So great job for those guys.
Bach, you hit real well in fantasy, didn't you?
I did. 2nd week in a row, guys. I'm telling you.
I am sitting pretty in last place by over 150 points at this rate. I picked Ryan Newman to win the Daytona 500, so that was definitely a tough look for – honestly, after that, the momentum has just –
yeah, yikes.
Yeah. But I think with Blaney, at some point the dominoes have to fall, right? This is 3 weeks he's been not even a competitive car. He has been a top 3 car. Yeah. So I think for me, he just needs luck on his side. But unfortunately for Ryan Blaney, this is something that's kind of followed him even from his Wood Brothers days. He always ran well, but for some reason, getting wins just seems to elude him. That's why when he does pick up the Talladega win or the Pocono win a few years back, those wins are such a big deal because it's built up for so long because every week he's going to come, he's going to compete. It's just a matter of it actually of it actually happening. And every time he gets a win, I think the monkey's off his back, and then he falls into a rut again.
Well,
and I think we're seeing that now.
I think we got a developing storyline here, boys. I think we're looking at the bad luck brothers between Ryan Blaney and Chase Elliott here. I think that this is something that we're unfortunately seeing two guys with a lot of talent just get hit with both external forces and things just happening as they're happening. But I think, obviously luck in general is a fickle mistress, or whatever people that are smart say. I don't know what that means, but I hope it sounds intelligent and it makes sense. But that's the point. I mean, at some point you just got to look at it and say things are gonna start falling for you.
Yeah, and they will. They will.
Is that a promise?
I definitely, at this point, I think the buildup is for a reason. You don't run this well if you're not going to eventually net some wins. So promising, you never know, because it's 3 races in a row he's had a competitive car and something happened. So maybe he got a curse somewhere placed on him, but I'm sure it's bound to happen. But on Twitter, I saw some people getting upset about the third stage being a little bit boring, because that's truly when we saw how dominant Bowman's car was. He was leading the whole race, but we saw Blaney and we saw Jimmy Johnson, those guys up there fighting for the lead. But that third stage, sure, Bowman ran with it and didn't let that lead go. But I think what people aren't talking about is the tire deg in this race was near perfect. It was anxiety inducing. You didn't know if Bowman was going to lose a tire. So many guys were on their treads when the end of the race came. I think, there wasn't a whole lot of passes for the lead, but there was always that thought in the back of your mind that within those last 5 laps, I was like, is he going to hold on to this? And I think that should really count for something.
Yeah, people are always going to find a reason to complain on social media. It's half the reason that kind of taking a bit of a hiatus from it, just because it just gets – you'll always find a reason to complain about something, right? But the point is like you have to kind of look at the improvement and the growth that's being taken here and the improvements moving forward. Maybe this will segue into a conversation about next season that I know we're going to have at some point tonight, boys, but you want some of these moments where you're kind of on the edge of your seat wondering what's going to happen next. It's not always going to happen right away. Rome wasn't built in a day, right? So I don't know. I just think the noise needs to relax a little bit. We need to not discredit the fact that Alex Bowman had an absolutely dominating performance. Guys like Blaney were right there with him, Jimmy Johnson too. That can't be discredited by a bunch of Twitter hawks.
Totally. And I mean, I'm sure that we're going to get into some things today that sort of echo what we've been talking about in social media, because I know I've got some things to say about that. So we'll just get into it, I'm sure, as we go along.
Yeah. So, I mean, wrapping up the race itself, I think in all we can say it was a pretty positive showing, and even Gluck's poll sort of mirrored that. It's the highest rating that race has gotten in a long time. So that's, again, we're continuing the upswing of really good races this year. Obviously it's still early and things can change, but I'm really liking where this is heading. But kind of on the opposite spectrum for the guys in Joe Gibbs, yeah, they had a better race this week, but there seems to be something different about Toyota this year. And I can't really put my finger on it, because yeah, they had a bad week last week. At Auto Club, they ran well. Obviously, they ran it into some trouble. But I think Martin Truex Jr.'s radio communication, that quick snippet of him being real upset with his teammates, I think that's sort of alluding to a bigger problem with them. Obviously, I'm not in the Toyota camp. I couldn't tell you what that problem is. But his car was great all race. He had his teammates up there running with him. Obviously, he didn't like the way that they were racing him, but what do you have to be so upset about? You know what I mean? Within the first stage, you went from the back of the field to the front of the field. I think just something feels off with those guys. And I don't know if you guys would know anything that I don't know either, but I think it's just kind of funny that there seems to be so much tension in that camp right now.
Yeah, I don't know. I think there's 2 ways that I've been looking at this, and they're both sort of connected as both solutions and explanations. One, perhaps we keep talking about how good Chevy has been in terms of being able to kind of figure this out. Maybe it's just that Toyota was that much better last season. I mean, maybe that's what it is, and they're seeing these frustrations because now they have this real big competition coming from guys that maybe they weren't expecting that right off the docket here. I think the second half is it's also very early in the season with a lot of guys trying to just, get back into the swing of things here. I think these boys need to go out and golf a little bit. Get on the course, maybe do some talking outside of the shot, because I don't think I think it's tough when you have a frustrating first couple of starts and then everybody wants to win. That's the competitive drive in them. So to a certain degree, I'm interested to see how this plays out, but I think cooler heads are going to eventually prevail, because if there's one thing I know about JGR, it's that they'll always talk about the fact that they're racing for Coach Gibbs. And in the end, I think that'll end up prevailing.
I agree. I mean, Truex is one of those guys who he is a radio sweetheart basically every week. He's got a lot of things to say. He's a pretty vocal guy. But again, like, you would think that I don't foresee this being a weekly thing. I just don't. As dominant as Joe Gibbs was last year, and they are every single year, I mean, it's hard to think that they could drop off at all, really. But, I mean, Truex is working with a new crew chief. There obviously could be some growing pains there. But in regards to just the tension between drivers, I mean, I'm not in that driver's seat. I mean, I don't know what it's like racing out there, and if you're actually going to be looking out for teammates. If I told you that I was going to be out in a race car and I had the opportunity to go out and pick up some spots and not necessarily work with my teammate at the time, there might be decisions that you have to make. I'm not in that position. But I think that, I mean, it is early in the season. I think they're going to need some time to gel together, kind of figure things out. Once they get back on the right track, we might be able to see some more improvements there.
Yeah, and Truex wasn't the only one who sort of got in a little bit of a spat this week. There was Denny Hamlin as well. Obviously, during the race, one of the bigger storylines in a relatively caution-free race was when he tried to bump draft Kyle Larson and eventually put him in the wall. An unfortunate incident, but drafting at 2-mile tracks it's tough. It's not a super speedway, and clearly the Chip Ganassi guys are upset about that. But Denny Hamlin and Kyle Larson are guys that, ironically, Kirby golf on the weekends together. They're good friends.
This is what I'm saying. Like, go to a golf course. Go to Michael Scott's new golf course, Chili's. Like, sit down, figure it out. Like, let's go.
Yeah, but so clearly those guys were. Denny posted a video of them just kind of hanging out on Twitter. They were grocery shopping, and he jokingly ran his cart into the back of Kyle Larson, kind of mimicking the incident they had in the race. It's all fine and good. They're pals. It was a joke. He was making light of the situation. But boy, Chip Ganassi did not like that. And he tweeted immediately back, quote tweeted Denny Hamlin, and just told him he didn't take kindly to the joke, especially after what transpired on the track. So I think with Denny Hamlin, it's sort of a storyline for me, something that I've noticed. Obviously, after he won the Daytona 500, people were pretty upset that he celebrated. Clearly something out of his control, but people were upset about that. And I think this year, Denny Hamlin, I guess if we're talking, wrestling terms, he's sort of turning heel right now. He's the season's bad guy right now. I don't know how it happened. He's normally a pretty mild-mannered guy. He's had his run-ins in the past, Chase Elliott, for example, but this season he just seems to have kind of taken that bad guy role, and it's stuck with him throughout the first 3 weeks. Obviously, it'll probably die off eventually, but it's just funny to see a guy like Denny Hamlin just finding himself in so many, I don't want to say negative storylines, but so many storylines of him just getting into a little bit of altercations between his teammate and Truex, between Chip Ganassi, the fans just turning on him after the Daytona 500. It seems funny that he's gotten wrapped up in all this.
Dude, did Chip really tweet at him saying he didn't find that funny?
He was not happy about it. I wish I had the tweet with you. I'd show it. I can put it in post-production on the screen.
Yeah, you're going to need to send that in.
Yeah, it's
I don't know about that.
He did not take kindly to it.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think it's unnecessary. I mean, what happened was unintentional. It's a product of these cars, and Auto Club is not, obviously, as we know, the smoothest track. I mean, those guys are bouncing around like crazy in those driver's seats. So when you have such a fast closing rate, and when these bumpers don't line up, yeah, sometimes there's going to be a little bit of an issue there. It's chain reaction. We saw that. We've seen that the past 2 weeks or 3 weeks, however long it's been. So is it appropriate that Chip Chip Ganassi should have taken a shot at Denny Hamlin? No, it's not. I think it's unnecessary. Obviously, there were no hard feelings between Denny and Kyle, and that's all that matters. But that's all I'm saying. Social media is just not even for the fan. It's just a cesspool for negativity. I don't get it.
Yeah,
I'm building a bridge and getting over it on this one. I'm all set. I'm good.
I guess it's easy for us to say because we didn't watch Denny Hamlin put $100,000 into the wall in turn 2. You know what I mean? So it's definitely different for us. But I'm with you. I think that is the product of this package. And obviously it's unfortunate that it happened to Chip Ganassi's car and basically put Kyle Larson out for the race. But you had Kurt Busch coming second.
Don't you want that? Don't you want competitiveness and then being able to walk off, have a discussion about it, and go grocery shopping? Like, I'm sorry. Like, if I was a professional athlete and I got into a fight with someone, I would totally walk around a Costco and get free samples with them. Not saying that's the exact same situation, but for me, it probably would be. So, like, I don't know, man.
Yeah. So at least we're about to get into the next gen updates here, but at least it's not only the fans that are the ones complaining on Twitter. We got even team owners too getting in on it. But so William Byron tested the car on Tuesday at Auto Club, the new Gen 7 car. He put it into the wall. It spun out. That's a story that broke on Twitter, which unfortunate, but guys like Eric Jones and Joey Logano, the guys who tested the car before, they told him, or they told the media that those cars are hard to wrangle. This is a product of what they're going for. And I think that's not a bad sign. I think knowing that we hear a lot now about how easy the cars are to drive, sort of in the sense that you're, pedal the metal at all times, and they don't just kind of spin out like they used to. Obviously, it comes with its different challenges because the drafting and the playing with aero is so much more complex. But I think this is really a good sign because these guys that have driven the car really attributed the incident to the reduced side force. So, I mean, me as a fan, I'm for how, different this car is going to be. It's a change that I am looking forward to, at least, body-wise. I'm sure we'll talk about the tires later, but yeah. So what are your guys' thoughts on that?
Well, your overreaction to the tires was an overreaction, but that's a conversation for
I know. Listen, I know it's an overreaction, but I am passionate about it.
But what I will say is that I think this is going to be a good challenge. I think this is going to engage some folks, and even perfect example, my best friend from home, he's really into cars and everything that has to do with them. I mean, he's even talking about the Supra and what that's going to look like and how things are going to progress. So I think it is going to also bring in a different crowd, but I think the challenge is definitely needed right now, especially with all the changes we're seeing. Why not just roll it all into one big one and see what happens? Roll the dice. Who knows?
Yeah, totally. I think it's great to see all these new changes. Looking like the car is basically ready. I think they said it was like 99% there. So they're making a lot of changes body wise. We're going to see more of the quote unquote stock style, but I'm excited. I'm very optimistic. And I think adding that challenge will be good for these drivers. And especially under this notion that these cars under this new package are, anybody can drive them because they are flat out basically throughout the corners at these intermediates and 2 milers. I think it'll be a good challenge for these guys going forward.
Well, we also have the one lug tire. Now, this definitely caused a stir on social media. People were upset. I'm not the only one. And I don't even want to say I'm upset about the one lug. I don't mind the one lug. I think that the pit stops really aren't going to change that much. They released the estimate times, and the difference is minimal, to say the least. I think for me, for someone that I've always appreciated the sport really for its aesthetic value. I love seeing the sponsors on the car. I think it's something about NASCAR that stands out from other forms of motorsport. The way it's been the same since 1949. It's a calling card. Even something to as small as the wheels. It's a familiarity that I have that is just embedded in me. And I don't mind the one lug change, but the new rims that they're going with, for me, they look cool objectively, but it's not NASCAR to me. And it doesn't feel like NASCAR yet. So I don't want to just crap on it all the time. I'm open-minded and I'm ready to see it on track. It's nothing that's going to make me stop watching by any means. But as someone who, I think the word purist is annoying, but I like the history, the prestige that the certain, stock car had, or at least my image of it. And knowing we're getting IMSA like supercar wheels, and it's just, I'm definitely uneasy about it.
Bach, I want you to know right now that I took out the photo that Cullen sent us of the tire itself, and I put it over his face. So right now I'm just talking to you. And this is what I'm going to say about it. Dude, will you just wait until it's on the car till you make your opinion, please? Because until it's on the vehicle, it doesn't make I don't know how to say this without swearing. So it doesn't make a difference. All right. So here's the way I look at it. I love the yellow lugs as well and how many there are. I mean, I've got an Eric Jones lug nut hanging from my rear view mirror right up at the middle, above the dashboard. It's really cool. It's a nice reminder of how cool the sport is. But I don't know. Wait until the look comes out. Let's not just judge a tire by the way it looks in the photo. That's clearly very nicely lit, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. My thought on this is, I honestly don't care. Okay, I mean, everybody points to the notion that, oh, it's not stock. Well, it's like, dude, NASCAR cars haven't been stock since the 60s. Okay, when they introduced the Ford Fairlane. 67, like they haven't been stock since the 60s. They introduced the car tomorrow to try and emulate more of a stock feel, and that's what they're doing now with this body style. Like at the end of the day, it's a tire. It's a tire. Like, ask yourself this question. Are you going to stop watching the sport just because they're changing the one lugs? No, you're not going to stop watching the sport. And if you are, then you shouldn't be watching the sport in the first place because you watch it for the racing. And I understand the whole aesthetics thing. And I'm not picking on you, Cullen. This is just me getting my thoughts out because social media this past week has just absolutely just developed so much. But it's just, you watch the sport for the racing. You watch it for obviously the pit strategy. But even at that point, do you rather watch the sport for the racing or for the pit strategy? And even so, the pit stops itself are only estimated to, maybe dock a half a second or so off the pit stops. We might be seeing 10-second pit stops here and there. But I think people are just blowing it way out of proportion. And it's not IMSA, it's not Formula One, it is NASCAR. It's a change they had to make. I mean, they put 18-inch wheels on these cars to emulate more of a stock car feel on these things, and they needed a fastener, and the only way they were going to do it is have a one lug. And honestly, having a one lug, eliminating these pointless lug nut penalties at the end of these races, I don't mind it at all. I think it has its benefits, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Like I said, I truly did. The one lug is the least of my worries. It's just a change that I'll have to get over aesthetically. And it sounds petty, and it is. Like, at least I'm self-aware, and I'm not one of those people on Twitter that's like, oh, this sport's in the garbage. You know what I mean? Like, I get it. Like, I get that I'm overreacting, but that's just.
But it's a valid opinion. Like, I get it. It is.
All I'm saying though, like, if that's it, the good thing is like, in a good way, if that's your only concern, then we're sitting pretty on this, because basically I could take a can of spray paint and just spray like little lug nuts on all the way around, just so aesthetically it kind of gets you for a minute. But if that's the biggest concern you have with this, I think this group at least is sitting pretty on it.
I just feel like there are so many other things that fans could be complaining about, bigger things that actually matter in the actual sport than a one lug nut tire. I mean, come on.
Well, let's talk about something, though, that I am really excited about. And they announced today via an Adam Stern tweet is how I saw it. But Speed Weeks is no longer plural. It is Speed Week. And they've shortened it. But the biggest change is the Busch Clash is no longer going to be run at the full Daytona 2.5 mile oval. They're doing the road course. And I think looking back to this year and what an absolute wreck fest Busch Clash was this year, knowing that they're doing a road course under the lights, and it's gonna be, it's new, it's exciting. We love the road courses. The Charlotte road course was fun. I think this is a change that I truly am really excited to see, and I haven't even seen that much for how much backlash there is about everything NASCAR related. This one has gone relatively unopposed. So I really am excited to see those cars under the lights at Daytona in a setting we haven't seen them before. I don't know if you guys are familiar with sports car racing at all, but the Daytona, the road course is fun, and I'm
the Rolex is a good time. This is going to be really cool. I mean, the one thing that probably I've been the biggest proponent of just being loud about is more road courses. It's just fun to watch. I mean, the Charlotte Roval, which, by the way, I'm just going to point out, wasn't supposed to be called Roval, but that's neither here nor there. That has been an awesome addition to the schedule here. And now being able to put this one in on Speed Week, which that's going to be packed. I mean, that's going to be jam-packed. We're going to be slamming things in there. But I think this is monumental in terms of being able to switch things up. And with the drastic schedule changes that are coming, I think it's just going to add to the mystique of it.
I agree. I was caught off guard when you mentioned that today, Cullen. I had no idea that this was actually a change. And then just reading more into it, I absolutely love it. If there's one thing these past two clashes have shown us, it's that guys are tearing up cars left and right, and it's unfortunate to see, but especially just to have an exhibition race at the road course, I think is a great idea. And who knows, maybe they run it in the Clash this year, and then they want to implement it into the schedule going forward. It could be a good test run to see if it's something they want to do going forward. But just knowing that we have from Tuesday to Sunday next year, just every single day we're going to be getting something, I think it's great. And especially starting right like 2 days after the Super Bowl, because the 500 next year is Valentine's Day. It's just a week after the Super Bowl. I think that it's great to kind of build that momentum and just to build the momentum going into the 500 next year. I think it's going to be awesome.
Dude,
yeah,
the 500's on the biggest Hallmark holiday of the year.
I believe so. Yeah, pretty sure.
Oh,
they're going to be a lot of angry boyfriends. That's for sure. But yeah, so I mean, we saw a lot between the next gen updates and news like that, but we heard something on this weekend, rumblings of the team merger. I know, Kirby, you brought this up. You heard it on, I think it was MRN or Sirius or something like that.
No, that was Bach.
Oh, it was Bach. All right.
Yeah, it was on XM90. They were briefly talking about it. And then they were talking about it in the practice or the broadcast or something.
Yeah, because you had mentioned that, and I remember us like just kind of talking about it for a few minutes. But then during qualifying, Mike Joy brought it up and sort of solidified that was something that could potentially be happening. Now, I've been waiting since then to hear anything about it, and it's been relatively quiet. It hasn't come up again, but I think the potential for this is really, really intriguing. I know. We sort of just in our group chat discussed what teams it could be. Bach, you're more familiar with the situation. So what exactly was discussed, and who do you think are the best candidates to be the teams involved?
Yeah, so it sounded like from what was being discussed on XM90, it sounded like that the team that was going to be getting bought was a multi-car team. So that eliminates Go Fast with Stuart Haas. That eliminates Levine with Joe Gibbs, and that eliminates the Wood Brothers with their Penske alliance. That leaves Hendrick, JTG Doherty, Ganassi, and RCR. And I mean, I immediately am drawn to Hendrick and JTG Doherty because of that technical alliance. And if they're able to get that done, that would be huge. I mean, with this resurgence that we've seen with Hendrick, with the speed that we've seen from Stenhouse in these first couple of races, he's had speed. I think that it could be huge for not only those guys' career, but even the guys at Hendrick. Hendrick's trying to really find themselves again and establish themselves again as a top two manufacturer and team in this sport. I don't know. I don't think there's any any sort of technical alliance with, because RCR's technical alliance is with Germain, and I don't know what Ganassi's is. I'm not sure, but I mean, we've seen Ganassi with.
Oh,
with
Ganassi is
DEI.
with, I think it's Premium, right? Because Ross Chastain.
Oh, right. Yeah. Premium or Spire.
Yeah, one of those
Yeah.
backmarker teams.
So, I mean, I just think that the obvious choice is, and the obvious one that's out there is JTG and Hendrick, because JTG is the only two-car team that has that technical alliance with another powerhouse. So that's my take on that.
Yeah, so I know when it comes to team acquisitions, it happens all the time, but within the last few years, we've only seen it with teams that aren't multi-car teams. And Hendrick already has 4 cars, which don't quote me on this, but I believe that's the limit that the charter allows, is only 4 cars per team. It's not like 2006 anymore when Roush had 5. But if they do acquire those JTG rides, do they have to get rid of a car? Does that mean either Stenhouse or Priest is out of a ride?
That's a good question.
I honestly didn't know that. I didn't know that they changed the number for cars. That is a great question, Cole.
So I think keeping an eye on that's definitely going to be interesting, because I love this move for JTG if it happens, because obviously it's going to step up their comp. If they fully merge, then, I mean, I'm sure that was great for JTG financially. But in Hendrick, this is going to be great to expand their team and, just keep building. But I think if that is something that is definitely something we have to think about, because if one of those guys is out of a ride, that definitely does change the landscape of what we're looking at in 2021. Does Ryan Preece get sort of lost in the shuffle in this already stacked free agent pool, assuming he's the one that's released? This could be Stenhouse as well. But I think there are a lot of storylines to watch with this. But I think for me, that's why I think RCR and Ganassi is definitely I don't think that's what it's going to be, but I think there definitely is a better chance than we may be giving initially, because they don't have to skirt around those rules. They'll have a 4-car team, and whether it's an outright buyout or it could be RCR Ganassi Racing, which is something we've seen with Ganassi before when they merged with DEI. So I think if Richard Childress can put his pride aside and let someone else be a part of his organization, because I think that would be the one question mark in that deal is RCR is such a cemented organization. Is he willing to split the name with another team owner? But if they can do that, their competition is going to be stepped up, because Ganassi is, as far as the Chevys go, the second best team behind Hendrick, and it's not even close. And RCR has definitely had some bad years. So I think both of those scenarios definitely are intriguing, and it's something I'm going to keep an eye out on, and I can't wait until we find out. You know what I mean? I feel like we've been waiting for 4 or 5 days now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think this could actually be the makings of a big shakeup if this goes down. I do think it changes the landscape and the way things are looked at. And I think while you guys are talking, I'm going to look up that charter rule.
Yeah.
Please do, actually, because that changes the narrative completely.
Well, I mean, that was the last story we had before getting into Phoenix. So I think Chevy's the real deal. We talked about it. They're legit, and I think they're gonna keep up their success at Phoenix. The new configuration has definitely been a curveball for a lot of guys. Kevin Harvick, for example, absolutely dominated at Phoenix before the reconfiguration, and now he hasn't been so dominant. But I'm excited to see what happens this week, because Stewart-Haas really needs a kick in the rear for this season, and Kevin Harvick has shown he can do well here. But the reconfiguration has been a little different. So I think this week it is the week that Stewart-Haas kind of legitimizes themselves in this season and becomes the force that we know them to be.
Yeah, and we were talking about this last year too, I feel like, with Stewart-Haas, just because they were so strong 2 years ago now. It took a while for Harvick to get his first win. We didn't see Almirola or Boyer make the playoffs last year. And as you said, Cullen, Harvick dominated Phoenix. I mean, he was the quote-unquote Phoenix of the Phoenix. before this new configuration. So I think it's a good time for guys like him, even guys like Almirola. Almirola runs really, really well at Phoenix too. You can expect to see him in the top 10, and he ran top 10 last week. So try and build off some momentum there. But Kyle Busch has kind of taken over that role for that Kevin Harvick had. He's won 2 of these races in this new configuration. So, I mean, it's going to be a toss up because you have so many guys, and with this new package that they're running, it'll be interesting to see how things shake up. But I think you expect to see Chase Elliott running up there again. Expect to see Ryan Blaney contending again. These young guys really trying to continue to make sure that it's not a fluke that they're running up there these first 3 weeks. So I expect to see those guys really making some moves and trying to keep their track position up there.
Yeah, one of these days it's going to hit, but give me Havoc again. He's definitely had some good experiences here. And I don't know, I'm kind of feeling good about Kyle Busch just because you would have thought he would have gotten a win already, even though it's so early. So, it could be another week where Bowman might be able to cement, but I think this win kind of seals his fate for the rest of the first half here. So, it'll be interesting to see how things look after the All-Star race in Charlotte, after the Coke 600 for him. But for now, I think he's kind of saved his behind a little.
Yeah, and I guess this isn't so much Phoenix related, but does Alex Bowman continue this success throughout the year? He's looked so strong in the first half. I don't think it'll just disappear, but at least for me, I don't see him winning another race this season, personally. Yeah. It's just, do we see the dominance continue for that team?
I don't know, man. Like I said earlier, Rome wasn't necessarily built in a day. I still think he's got a lot to prove, and to be in, quite frankly, a Hendrick car, especially the 88, you have to be able to not only win, but bring a certain marketing and popularity presence. And if you ask someone for their top 3, very rarely, in my opinion, will someone say Alex Bowman. Maybe that changes soon, but I don't think he's there yet. Bowman came in at a very interesting time. I think a lot of people latched on to Byron because Byron was a real good story at the time, especially now that he's jumping into the 24, and everybody loves Chase, but there's just something about Bowman that's a little behind that popularity structure. And of course, Jimmy's got, all the free media in the world. It is what it is, but he's got to keep performing. I mean, one win doesn't change that.
I agree. And when you look at guys like Chase and Bowman that had much success in the lower series, Bowman had a stint in the Cup Series when he was a rookie, and then kind of fell out because he was with an underfunded team, and then had the opportunity to fill in for Junior actually at Phoenix. Led a lot of those laps, almost won the race before he wrecked out. But he's kind of got that story that's unlike Chase's or Byron's, where he kind of was trusted by Junior and the guys in the Hendrick camp, and he's consistent. We can give him that. I mean, hell, he could have 4 wins last year. What he finished second 3 weeks in a row or something like that. Yeah, so he runs up front. But, I mean, to your guys' point, I think he still has a lot to prove, and he is young, and we're still looking for that marketable factor in him, and especially in most of these guys that are filling in these roles here. We're looking for that marketable factor for them, and I think as they start to continue to run up front, to continue to win races, we'll start to see that come out of them.
Kids got to win. Kids got to win. That's all it is.
It was definitely tough for his stock to lose Nationwide as a sponsor. I think in the last year or so, with the more his success in this role has been, because he does have that De Benedetto sort of background where he fought and clawed his way to a good ride from BK Racing, from a back marker team. He built his own career. And at the same time, his interviews he is one of the brighter personalities in the sport. We saw that after his win where he talked about getting the tattoo. He's a guy that I think the more that the spotlight begins to be shown on him, the more he blooms as a superstar. And I think maybe let me pump the brakes on superstar, but blooms as an upper echelon driver because he does get lost in the Hendrick pack. He is the fourth out of the four personality wise. Byron, Elliott, Johnson, they have established bigger fan bases already. But I think the more that Bowman begins to or continues to succeed, the more that he really takes a chunk not away from those guys, but starts to build a brand of his own and will eventually earn the staying power to stay in the Cup Series.
Yeah, no, the kids just got to perform, though. I know that's a really simplistic way of putting it, but I think performance actually is going to matter a whole lot, and kind of embracing where the sport's going. It's getting younger. It's getting a little more hip in certain ways, as the kids say. Did the kids still say that? It doesn't matter. But, I just got to embrace the change. Cullen.
Yeah.
All right, boys. Well, that's all I had for this week. Anything else we might have missed? Any more charter news that we forgot to talk about in the past weeks?
No, I literally couldn't find anything specific. So
yeah, we'll have to keep our eyes open for that, because that'll be interesting.
Listen,
They said we were supposed to hear this week, so who knows? Maybe the next couple of days.
Yeah, I got a 3.5-hour flight on Friday, so maybe I'll cash in on the Wi-Fi for once and do some investigative work.
Yeah, Kirby, you have some NASCAR phone calls to make with your insider sources. We got to know.
Yeah, me and my insider sources, also known as my buddy who's at MRN, that I'm just going to call and be like, hey, how's work?
Hey, that's better than what we got. All right, boys. Well, that's going to do it for this week. We had a fun Auto Club 400, but on Sunday, we've got the Fan Shield 500. Definitely harder to remember than named after the track itself, but I'm definitely excited for it. We gave our predictions, so the fantasy scoreboard, I'm sure